Bet you this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling? Welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now, it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back, yeah.
It's the hardest, talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can hide it. Let's get started. It's the hardest, talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can hide this. Let's get started. It's the hardest, talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can hide this. Let's get started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you the hardest. Standing strong and proud, nothing can hide this. Let's get started.
Yeah.
It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started. It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
Yeah, get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, bet you this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling? Welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now, it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back, yeah.
It's the hardest, talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can hide it. Let's get started. It's the hardest, talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can hide this. Let's get started. It's the hardest, talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can hide this. Let's get started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can hide this. Let's get started.
Yeah.
It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started. It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
Yeah, get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, bet you this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling? Welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now, it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back, yeah.
It's the hardest, talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can hide it. Let's get started. It's the hardest, talk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get started. It's the hardest. around and disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
Started. Yeah.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
Yeah, get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle nobody, settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, bet you this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling? Welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back. Yeah.
It's the hardest. Talk around, don't disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around, don't disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around, don't disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
Started. Yeah.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
Yeah, get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle nobody, settle.
Whoa! Are we live? Oh man. What's up, everybody? It's your boy. Hardest part of the ring. Very special apron bump. First ever live episode. Little change in schedule from what I plan on doing this week. So I figured we'll do something a little fun. Yeah, get a little live ski, because normally you get post-produced hardest part of the ring, but now you're getting uncut. But yes, thank you for anybody that comes through the chat. I see Fretz is here. What's up, buddy? Anybody that comes through the chat or anybody that watches after the fact, I'll probably put the audio version out. Hopefully it's good enough for audio only, but yeah, man. So we're here, we're queer. We got a 2001 WWF tier list that we'll be doing today. But if you're watching this, if you had just so happened to stumble upon the hardest part of the ring, the Apron Bump podcast, I do retro pay-per-view wrestling event reviews spanning 4 different decades. How many timelines do I got going? Like 7 or 8 different timelines from mid-90s WWF, WCW, ECW. Got the golden eras of Ring of Honor, TNA, Progress, and then what we got here today, Attitude Era. I guess Attitude Era. I don't know if what does everybody consider this era? of WWF, because it's not Attitude Era. It's for sure not Attitude Era, because like in my opinion, that ended at WrestleMania X7 when Stone Cold shook Vince McMahon's hand. That's when it ended for me. And you could argue the Invasion kind of falls under it, but we're done with the Invasion in 2001. That's dead and buried, man. The Raw after Survivor Series, they're like, Invasion? I never heard of it. Stop talking about the Invasion. But it's a weird period after 2001. But point being, if that's the kind of stuff you're into, as the link down here says, apronbump.com for all my full episodes for whatever timeline that your fancy is tickled by. But yeah, man, so I think that's about it, right? I think we should just get right to it, huh? Let's see if this works. Hold on, I got something fun for you guys, right? Blue Skidoo a week into. Ooh. Anyways, that probably only made me laugh, but anyways, yeah, Frets, I agree. Yeah, going back and watching all those week to week stuff is yeah, it's a rust. But man, Peacock, man, hey Peacock, if you're listening, which I know you are, or WWE, or whoever is controlling, whoever is bottlenecking getting these goddamn SmackDown episodes up there on the Peacock. They only got like from 2019 up till now, and it's like nobody wants to watch that. Give me some goddamn fisting. Fist me, daddy. Fist me with your Peacock. I don't know. Sex jokes. But anyways, we have a and yeah, Super Raw was that was big yikes. Big yikes. So we got a tier list here. I guess it's what all the YouTubers are doing, right? It's what all the kids are doing these days. So we got S through D. Is S superior? I'm assuming. That's what I'm gonna go with it, whether it is or it isn't. I also have all like the cards up here just for reference, just in case I forget. But once again, I have linked in the description my full reviews of all of these shows that I have listed down here. All of the 2001 WWF pay-per-views. And I will mention out the gate that I'm not including the UK specific shows. So no Insurrection, no Rebellion, just because it's hard to grade it on the same scale. You know, they're entertaining they have entertainment value, but they're just not, they're not canon to what's going on TV. So I can't really compare them against other pay-per-views. But if you're interested, I did do a Rebellion 2001 watch along with the boys at Get Show Podcast, and I don't think I linked it, but I'll probably link it after the fact. But it's on my YouTube somewhere. It was a few months ago. It was a fun time doing that. But yeah, so everything except the UK pay-per-views is included, and we'll pretty much go in chronological order, I guess, right? But right off the bat, first of all, just before we even start thinking, because I've done my best to not try to think about this before I came on here. Just wanted to have my raw, uncut thoughts and stupid logic play out in front of you guys. But yeah, like I said, first off, see what we got here? You see this little doodad we got here? Boom. Easy. We don't even need to think about it, right? WrestleMania 2001, WrestleMania 17, WrestleMania X7, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's S. If I had every pay-per-view that's ever played out in the history of wrestling, WrestleMania X7 would be at the top. It's my personal favorite wrestling show that's ever occurred. And why is that? Well, you can argue that, because 2001 is, what was I, 8 years old at this time. this is like peak wrestling. That's like the peak age to watch wrestling, because you're old enough to kind of understand the storylines and everything that's happening, but you're still slightly naive to the background kind of stuff, especially in 2001 with the social media wasn't a thing and internet was in its earlier stages. So we didn't have that kind of peek behind the curtain, as they say. So it was all magic, and it was amazing to watch. And that applies for all of these pay-per-views here. But WrestleMania in particular, it's just top to bottom almost the perfect show. Because you had something for everybody on that show, right? I mean, obviously you cap it off with Rock versus Austin, which was it encapsulated the whole generation of wrestling. Arguably the biggest era of wrestling, and these two guys were at the top of it. And you close the show with those guys for the main title in a feud that was organically built over several really years, because you have Rock, you had Austin come in, become a huge star organically, crowd loved him. He got so over. He pretty much saved the WWF from losing the Monday Night Wars. And then he's on top of the world. He's on fire. He goes down due to injury. The Rock pretty much takes that ball and runs with it and takes it even higher. And then Austin, after a year, a little more than a year, comes back. And now you have this just organic clash of these two people that have just been torchbearers for the company. Two people that are loved by the fans more than anybody has ever been. And now it's like the fucking cliche shit, the immovable object, unstoppable force. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And two charismatic guys. The build was great, other than the weird Deborah shit that they eventually just pretended didn't happen, but we won't talk about that either. So yeah, just a great build up, a great match. The finish to the show people have problems with, but it was insane, and it was memorable if nothing else. But then the rest of the show, if you like technical wrestling, you got Benoit versus Angle, you got Eddie versus Test, you got Jericho versus Regal. If you like car crashes, you got the TLC match, which is my favorite match of all time. You got the hardcore match, which gave us hilarious, like, the golf cart spot with Raven and people getting thrown through walls and windows and shit. If you want, soap opera stuff, you have the McMahons, like the Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon. In your head, on paper, that's like, why is this happening? This is going to be the drizzling shits. But it was incredible, and it gave probably the biggest pop of the night when Linda McMahon sat up out of her wheelchair. So you have China versus Ivory too, which, come on, like, women's wrestling wasn't a thing in 2001. We all understand it. But as far as the times go, it didn't really get better than that. Because you had China, who was one of the most over acts in the entire company. You had Right to Censor, who was a group that was probably the most despised group in the company. So it was just, they made chicken salad out of chicken shit, right? It was a squash match, but it was fun. And it was a culmination of a month-long feud. So to recap, you have car crashes, you have technical wrestling, you have soap opera, you have women, you have men, you have tag teams, you have, a big, small, you have the gimmick battle royal, we have fucking Iron Sheik, who's probably still walking to the ring as we speak. Duke the Dumpster Drozy, like, the dumpster being involved makes this show S tier in my opinion. So I won't, hopefully get too long-winded on each of these shows, but WrestleMania is just, it top to bottom had something for everybody, and every piece of the buffet was fantastic. So that's an easy S. I have to establish this before I can grade anything else, because that's obviously going to be on top, and we'll kind of go through each one chronologically. With that as our foundation, I guess. So, starting off with Royal Rumble is, where'd my fucking mouse go? Did my mouse just die? Hold on. Technical difficulties. Because asshole wants to use a wireless mic. Let me plug this daddy in. Alright. There back. Here we go. All right. Royal Rumble 2001. Probably, so 2001, I'm probably going to say this a lot, right? 2001 is my favorite year of wrestling. Again, it's maybe the age I was at the time, but it's also a tremendous year for the WWF. Great business for the company, and it was just a fun time all around for fans. Royal Rumble, probably my favorite Royal Rumble of all time. And, you know, I don't want to be like too hyperbolic and saying that everything's my favorite of all time, but like 2001 was that good. So Royal Rumble, right? I don't know if I don't know if it was as I can't put it on the same level as WrestleMania. I don't think. If we were just doing a tier list on Royal Rumbles, 2001 would definitely be S tier. I'm inclined to go A, because, you know, the Rumble match itself was great, right? Definitely my favorite Rumble match of all time, for sure, because you had all the different segments, right? You had the beginning with like the Hardys facing each other and Drew Carey coming in. Then you have Kane wrecking shop. You have the hardcore elements involved in the middle. Then you have a Rock coming in towards like number 17 or something. And then towards the end, you have all the big players. Yeah, exactly. Al Snow brought in a bowling ball. Like, man, that should be S now that I'm thinking about it. Kane, it just in my head, I will never forget Kane taking the trash can lid and just smashing Grandmaster Sexay and fucking knocking him over the top. It was just so many great elements to this match. And you have Stone Cold coming in towards the end and Haku for some reason. But the Rumble match was great. Low key, a really good match also. I think it was the opening match. And I have all the cards pulled up just for reference, just in case I need some help here. But credit to cagematch.net, by the way, for all these cards. This opening tag match here, Edge and Christian versus the Dudley Boys. Now, this match doesn't get talked about a lot because of all the, obviously we have the TLC match in a matter of months after this. And then we have all like the steel cage matches and the tables matches between the Dudleys and the Hardys and Edge and Christian and all that stuff. All these shenanigans. So we had this just kind of a plain Jane tag match here in the opening. But go watch it. It is the best, like, it couldn't have been more than like 10 minutes. It is the best opening tag match you'll probably ever see for a WWF pay-per-view. Just so good. Both the teams were so good. And I remember watching it. I was like, man, why does this match not get talked about enough? You know, I'm not going to say it was 5 stars because, like I said, it was just a quick opening match. But it was just executed so perfectly. And then this ladder match. Oh, come on, man. Come on. Fuck, I forgot this match happened on this show. I'm glad I have these cards up. Probably my favorite ladder match of all time. Now that if we're just talking ladder match, just, you know, one-on-one ladder match, right? Chris Benoit versus Jericho. God, that was an awesome ladder match. Man, I'm almost inclined to switch to S here. Ivory versus China. That was the weird spot where China got injured. Kurt Angle versus Triple H was not that great. Man, but everything else was pretty solid. Man, I almost want to. You know what? I think that ladder match might tilt me a little bit. I think due to the ladder match, because I totally forgot that was on this show. My favorite ladder match of all time, my favorite Royal Rumble match of all time, and then you have great stuff like the tag team match in the beginning. Shit, I guess I have to go S on this one. Royal Rumble's fantastic. Fantastic. I remember just burning my VHS that I had that recorded on as a kid. No Way Out. I remember not loving this show. I'm trying to even think. All right, we're done with Rumble. Hopefully I don't have any of my porn tabs up here. Raven versus Big Show. This Intercontinental 4-way was pretty good, but it was it didn't really have a storyline. I don't remember it having a lot of heat to it. Trish versus Stephanie was better than it had any right being, but it was still Trish versus Stephanie. The 3 Stages of Hell match. I watched this recently, and it was not as good as I remember. It was just like Like it was very, because Steve Austin is very notorious for calling stuff in the ring like front to back, and this match it just felt sloppy. It didn't feel like there was any cohesion to it. Like it didn't match the build that it had. It did not match the because this is like another thing that was like over a year of build. Should have been awesome, but it just wasn't that awesome. It was okay, but I didn't love it. And then the whole thing with the the thing with the cat, it was this. Ugh. I think she got fired like either like a week after this or 2 weeks after this, so this was all irrelevant here. I remember this triple threat tag team title match not being very good. This is the period where Undertaker really didn't give a shit. It felt like, if I remember correctly, I think this triple threat tag team match was pretty much just Kane and Undertaker squashing these guys, and then like I don't even remember who won, but it was one of the other teams ended up winning out of nowhere. And then the main event was fine. It had a weird like run in from Big Show that didn't make any sense. Didn't affect the match at all. It was a pretty good match. I don't want to shit on the match, but overall this show, I might put it at C. I might change it based on the other shows that slide in here. But right now I'm inclined to put it at C. And then we have WrestleMania, like we talked about. Then we have Backlash. I really liked Backlash. When I think of this show, first of all, I think we all think of the winner take all main event between the 2-man power trip, Austin and Triple H versus Taker and Kane, which was fun, right? It was fun. But I don't think it was near the best match of the show, because I remember loving the hardcore match between Raven and Rhino. My favorite Rhino, exactly, Frets. The gore, like that match. I talked about a 10-minute match earlier with Royal Rumble, but if you want an amazing sprint of a match, Rhino versus Raven, Backlash 2001. Just incredible. The best match either of these guys ever had in WWF by a country mile. Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle, which is another really fun match. Ultimate submission, 30 minutes, I believe. Which, say what you want about Iron Man matches, I'm inclined to be like, okay, it doesn't really matter until the last like 5 minutes or so. But for what it was, they did a really good job at, like, because it was submissions only, so it had almost like an MMA feel to it, which was different than what anybody else on the card was doing. So that really kind of made the show as a whole. I think that enhanced it. What else we got on here? We had another triple threat. Oh no, sorry, this is WrestleMania. I'm a doofus. Okay, yeah, now we're on Backlash. I was like, God damn, they had another triple threat for the hardcore title. The Duchess of Queensberry. Man, I love that shit, man. I don't know what that says about me, but I thought that was this. Oh, that was some good shit. The Duchess of Queensberry rules match between Regal and Jericho. That's a guilty. I don't even want to call that a guilty pleasure. That's just a straight up pleasure. You have X Factor on the show. Come on, man. This show was bad. The last man standing match. And you all probably know this from that crazy spot where Shane McMahon jumped from the tower, or the Titantron, up down to Big Show. So we have great technical wrestling. We have the shenanigans of the Queensberry match. We have X Factor. We have the hardcore title match, one of the best hardcore title matches of all time. We have the crazy spectacle of Shane McMahon falling 12,000 feet. We have this European title match, which should have been good, and I think technically it was good, but nobody gave a fuck about it because there was no build to it. And then you have the huge story with all the titles on the line, with the 4 biggest stars in the company closing it out. I loved Backlash. So, for that reason, it's either A or B. I feel like I gotta go A. I'm gonna go A for this one. Backlash is definitely a great show to watch, but not on the tier of WrestleMania or Royal Rumble. Judgment Day. I didn't like Judgment Day. Didn't really like Judgment Day at all. Judgment Day, when I think of Judgment Day and what I liked about it, I instantly think of that chain match between Triple H and Kane. A really sleeper of a match. It's not a match that I thought was going to be great, but I watched it and it was fucking awesome, man. I mean, this is the for context, this is actually the night before Triple H tears his quad. So, you know, the story doesn't really apply going forward, but you're watching this and it's like, man, this is one of the better Kane matches, definitely at least of the year. Probably the best Kane match of 2001. One of his best of his career, in my opinion. And Undertaker and Stone Cold main evented this show, which was not a good match. Judgment Day, I mean, yeah, Austin and Taker just did not have the chemistry, man. I mean, in none of their matches they've had over the years, none of them have been particularly good. Yeah, I agree, Fred. It's very meh, this show. The 2 out of 3 falls match with Angle and Benoit. So this was another 3 stages of hell style match where each fall had a different stipulation. So I think it was pinfall, and then the first fall was pinfalls only, the second fall was submissions only, and then the third fall, if necessary, was a ladder match. And it was like, again, I thought it would be better than it played out. Like, you have Benoit and Angle. You don't really need all this gaga, in my opinion. You just have them go out there and fucking wrestle. Like, and the build to it was stupid. You had Benoit stealing Angle's medals and then hiding it in his trunks. And then you have that image that surfaced that I think I tweeted out recently where Kurt Angle's like peeking inside Benoit's tights. So that was fine, but everything else was kind of horseshit. What else is on this show? Oh, Rikishi. Regal squashing Rikishi in this show, which I believe Rikishi was injured, and I think that's why he was squashed by Regal, but it was still like, what? Why? Or maybe he got sent to OVW or something. Whatever the case may be, Rikishi was taken off TV shortly after this. This triple threat hardcore match was pretty good. I do remember enjoying it. Rhino's hardcore title run was fucking, I loved it, man. Right, that he really found his niche with that hardcore title division. You had China versus Lita, which sounds like a fever dream. That doesn't sound like a match that happens, but it did. And it was weird, but it was not the worst thing, you know? I mean, like I said, 2001, you didn't really have women's wrestling. So when you take all the 2001 women's matches, you know, China versus Lita probably is up there towards the top, which is not saying a lot because Trish versus Stephanie from No Way Out is probably top 5. We talked about this chain match here. This turmoil match. I don't know, Fretz, what did you think about it, man? To me, this match kind of plodded along, especially because towards the end of this turmoil match was awesome. I think it was Edge and Christian versus Jericho and Benoit. If it was just that match, it would have been great. But he had all the nonsense with APA and the Dudley Boys, who didn't really have great chemistry, in my opinion. They were just... I remember watching this match and being like, wow, this is just people Irish whipping people and hitting shoulder blocks. It felt like it was just that for like 15 minutes, and then we had a great match with 2 competent teams at the end. So it just felt like a lot of wasted time, in my opinion. And then we have Austin versus Taker, which I touched on, was not that good. So yeah, Judgment Day, it's other than the chain match and I guess the Angle Benoit match, not a lot of good. Yeah, X Factor had a good run in the X Factor will boost up any show, in my opinion. Man, it's either C or D. I'm questioning it. Was it as good as No Way Out or was it worse? I would say it's probably on par with No Way Out. I think D is a bit harsh because ultimately it's still 2001 and the business is red hot. So the show was something, but it was whatever. It was a whatever show. It wasn't outright bad. So I think I'm gonna give it a C. King of the Ring, man. I loved King of the Ring. I loved it. I don't even need the card for this one. In fact, the only the only thing that wasn't good on this show was the main event. Weirdly, was the triple threat match between Austin, Jericho, and Benoit. This is still weird circumstances, a lot of bad luck, because he had both Benoit and Austin get injured in this match. This was Benoit's last match before he had spinal surgery, I believe it was. Then Austin, this is the show where Booker T debuts. He comes through the crowd, kind of starting off the invasion, I guess, right? Booker T comes through the crowd, takes Austin, gives him like a backdrop through the announce table, and breaks Austin's neck. I believe it's his neck, right? Maybe, am I being too dramatic about that? But he injures Austin, whatever the case. Yeah, it's his neck, right? Because he finished the match, and he could barely move. He's like, he had to crawl in there. They had to go home early. I think like Benoit hits Jericho with a superplex in the ring, and then Austin kind of just crawls in and covers him. There's like a weird finish to it, but everybody's injured in the show, and then there was a weird build to it too, because we're in Austin's heel run, and nobody wants to boo Austin, and he's supposed to be the heel here, and Jericho and Benoit are supposed to be the baby faces. So it was just a weird dynamic going on. But that's the bad of the show. Lots of good. Fucking Shane McMahon versus Kurt Angle. Need I say more? And then you have, the King of the Ring tournament. So we have the final four of the tournament. Edge, Christian, Rhino, Kurt Angle. Team Wreck. All real-life friends. And just great chemistry between all those guys. And it had a great story of Edge and Christian kind of teasing tension. You have Rhino in there as kind of the X Factor, who has been red hot with all this hardcore title stuff. And you have Kurt Angle trying to repeat from last year. And just great matches all around between all four of these guys. And culminating with Edge winning, Shane McMahon, the whole story with Shane McMahon costing Kurt Angle the match made sense because they had a match later. Kurt Angle had 3 matches on this show, and each one was great. What else was on this show? Just for lulz here. Jeff Hardy versus X-Pac for the light heavyweight championship, which is just a funny thought. I remember this match being okay. Nothing, to write home about, but the Dudleys versus Kane and Spike Dudley. We'll just pretend that didn't happen. I think it was around the time where the Dudleys did that spot where they just chuck Spike Dudley 10 feet out of the ring, through a table, I think. I don't know, but yeah, King of the Ring I think is A tier for sure, because you had the tournament, Shane McMahon versus Kurt. I think that alone gives it A. It's just a fun watch, dude. I watched all these shows recently within the past year, but just a fun show to watch. And you have DDP and the Undertaker, that whole shit, but we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that shit on here. And exactly, yeah, the Stanley Cup trophy with Edge, it just all made sense. Invasion, man. Invasion. So it's a perfect segue. I said King of the Ring was an easy, fun watch. The Invasion felt like I was being butt fucked the entire time I was watching this, because man, did this show drag on. And you know why it drug on? Okay, I think we're back on. Yeah, there's no matches built for it. And you had the main event, which was a 5-on-5 match, which I'll even pull that up here. So you have Team WWF versus Team WCW, ECW, the inaugural brawl. Main event was pretty good, I remember. It had a good build, and it played out pretty well. I think this is probably what it should have been at Survivor Series 2001. Yeah, the brawl and panties match. Oh boy. But dude, Jeff Hardy versus RVD. Maybe the best match of 2001. I know that's saying a lot. Probably not the best, but it's definitely top 10, maybe top 5. Just an incredible match between those guys. And you have RVD, who is fresh. He's like not at his peak yet. People are just starting to get to know him. But man, he showed out on this show. And Jeff Hardy, who is new, he hadn't had a lot of singles stuff at this point. So it was just like, it had no right being as good as it ended up being. And they stole the show. But then look at the rest of this fucking card, man. Let's start from the beginning. So you have Edge and Christian versus Lance Storm and Mike Awesome, which on paper you're like, oh, that's fine. It wasn't. It was pretty plotting. Earl Hebner versus Nick Patrick. You have the APA versus Chuck Palumbo, Sean O'Hare. Again, with the APA, it's like, hey, let me Irish whip you a few times, give you some shoulder blocks, and then we'll go home. The Billy match of the night, Earl Hebner. It was, look, I had fun watching it, I'm gonna be honest, but like, that's just me. That's just me in my shitty taste. Raven versus William Regal. It wasn't a hardcore match, I don't think it was. There was no, these are just random ass matches that are happening just to fill the show. And I think they were doing the thing where they were like counting who won which match, like how many matches did the WWF win, how many matches did they weren't calling it the Alliance at this point, I don't think yet. How many matches did WCW, ECW win? They had like a little ticker. And there was no stakes. Like, it didn't matter. It's not like, if it would be something if it was like they had a stipulation that they had at Survivor Series, which like the winner or the loser had to disband and go out of business. That'd be one thing. But this is literally just bragging rights bullshit. Like, it didn't matter. And you have Billy Kidman versus X-Pac, which I remember being a pretty solid match. You have Raven versus William Regal, which sucked. You had this weird ass, like, look at the cocksucker names in this 6-man. Okay, that was probably a bad phrasing. Chris Canyon in it. I didn't mean. Am I canceled yet? 6-man tag match. We have Chris Canyon, Hugh Morris, Sean Stay. We have meat. We have meat on this pay-per-view, everybody. Versus Albert, the one Billy Gunn, and Big Show, who was just fat and just had no place on the card. It just had, throw him out there. Let's see what happens with Hugh Morris. 4-minute match. Who gives a fuck? Tajiri versus Taz, which at one point was an awesome match in ECW, but a 5-minute match in WWF was nothing. You had jumpsuit Taz out there. Yeah, just not a lot. And like I said, in the context of the show as a whole, I remember watching it, and it was a tough watch. I remember it was just tough to get through until the last 3 matches were fun in their own ways, but the show as a whole just wasn't good. It's between C and D. I'm inclined to go, oh man, RVD versus Jeff Hardy might save it though, because that was very good. And the main event was fine, but then you have Survivor Series, which is really all anybody will ultimately remember, because it was the same kind of deal, right? And you had closing out with Stone Cold turning on the WWF, which is just stupid. You know what? We're going D because of that. I think that's gonna push me to the edge there, because you had Austin joining the Alliance, which they would go on to call it, which I think that spark makes this show D tier. Even though RVD versus Jeff Hardy was amazing, that is not enough to save it, in my opinion. And it just wasn't good as No Way Out or Judgment Day, if we're talking about the show as a whole. SummerSlam. I enjoyed SummerSlam. I remember enjoying SummerSlam. We had a rematch between Jeff Hardy and RVD in a ladder match, which was great. Austin versus Kurt Angle, which was a match that I don't remember. So we're kind of getting to the era where I wasn't really watching as a child, because anybody that has followed my podcast, you would know that I got in a fight with a kid down the street. I threw my bike helmet at them, broke the bike. The helmet hit the road. It was just a shitty bike helmet. It broke. But my parents found out about it, and they were like, well, you're getting all this aggression from this goddamn wrestling you're watching. You're banned from watching wrestling for 6 months. And I was like, well, fuck me then, I guess. So this is like the era where I wasn't watching. But I just recently watched SummerSlam for the first time, and I remember enjoying it. And Kurt Angle versus Stone Cold, I think, if we're just talking about pure, just one-on-one singles match, probably the best match Stone Cold has ever had in his career. Maybe, it's hard to put it over his matches with The Rock, especially at X7 and even at WrestleMania 19. But man, it's up there. Even Kurt Angle, I would say it's up there in his matches in his career, and that's saying a lot. Just an amazing match between those guys. It had a shitty finish, which brings it down a tier, I think. It's probably why it isn't talked about as much, but those guys had tremendous chemistry, and they have a few more matches to wrap up the year, and they're all at least good. So for those two matches, RVD Jeff Hardy and Austin Angle, that's those are two big marks for this show. What else we got? I remember Booker T versus Rock closed out this show, and I remember it being kind of underwhelming. I don't know if their chemistry just wasn't there. They had chemistry on the mic, but in the ring, I don't know if it was that WCW style. Maybe that Booker T had trouble transitioning. Come on, DDP and Kanyon versus Kane and Undertaker, a squash match of squash matches, just happened to be in a cage. It was just weird, and it just encapsulates the entire issue with the invasion. Is that you give these WCW guys a spotlight, but you just make them look like jokes, and that's what this cage match was. Rhino versus Jericho, I remember being okay. Tajiri versus X-Pac, same deal. Let's see, we have a 6-man tag, Spike Dudley versus APA versus Dudley's and Test. Don't remember. You know what? I do actually remember this being kind of fun. I remember Test just came in at one point and just killed everybody. I think he threw Spike Dudley from the turnbuckle, through the announce table or some shit. So that was actually better than it deserved to be. And then you have Lance Storm versus Edge opening the show for the IC title, which was fun. So yeah, SummerSlam was a damn good show in my opinion. A damn good show. Definitely A. I'm hesitating because is Backlash as good as SummerSlam? Yeah, I think so. Kind of in a different way, I think, but I think it's about as good. I was debating if I should shift Backlash down, but no, I think I'll keep it. I'll keep it for now. Yeah, it's a shame Lance Storm didn't really amount to much after this though, because this is pretty much his not pretty much. It was definitely his peak in the company, opening a major show as champion against Edge. But he had a good little match here. So, Unforgiven. Unforgiven. I'm racking my brain trying to remember what happened there. So this is the show. Is this Pittsburgh? Yep. So this is the show where Kurt Angle won the title in his hometown. I think that's pretty much what people think about when they think of Unforgiven 2001. And the match itself actually wasn't that great. As far as, 'cause I just talked about Kurt Angle and Stone Cold and their chemistry, if we're ranking all their matches they had, the Unforgiven one's probably at the bottom. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't that great. You had the moment at the end with Kurt Angle winning, and this is right after September 11th. So the American Hero beating the dastardly heel right here, winning the title. So that was a good moment to close out the show. Yeah, Chronic, man. Man, I almost like, look, if you're watching this show live, you're like, wow, this was the drizzling shits. But it was almost just fun to watch these guys try to wrestle. The Kane and Taker versus Chronic was just, it tickled my cockles watching this shit. So it's almost a thumbs up rather than a thumbs down for me. Jericho versus RVD was tremendous, a really good match for anybody. If you've never seen that match, go back and watch that. Tajiri versus Rhino was like a fucking, it doesn't have the times up here, but I remember it being like bizarrely short. Another match that would have been awesome, and probably did it occur in ECW? I'm not sure if that my timeline if they overlapped, but would have been awesome in ECW, but it was not here. The US title, man, the WCW US title, the coveted. Lots of title matches, by the way, in this era because they had fucking 20 of them. And then Rock versus Booker T and Shane McMahon. I've never been a fan of handicap matches for a single title. Like, what, you're going to win it and you're going to split the belt in half? Like Progress, and their tag team titles, you're going to make a cut down the middle and then bring them together? Like, no, it's not going to happen. It's stupid. I mean, this match more than I thought I would. Rock versus Booker T and Shane McMahon was better than it had any right being. Maybe it's because Shane McMahon was there to make it entertaining. So it was actually not a bad match there. Edge and Christian, another match. I've said this a lot, but another match that should have been awesome. And we'll see this with the Hardys too, later in the year. This is just a singles match, right? Yeah, this is their first match, which is a really good match, but I remember the crowd not being super into it. Which is, don't know why. Maybe they just didn't know who to cheer, who to boo. Was this the debut of Christian's heel theme? Christian! Yeah, that's some good shit. That might make it S tier to me. Perry Saturn versus Raven. This is Moppy era, right? And you have the 4-way tag team title match in the beginning, which I remember was fine. Not that great, though. I remember it just not gelling, The chemistry was off in the opening match. It should have just been the Dudleys versus the Hardys, in my opinion. And you have weird teams like Lance Storm and Hurricane. Like, why? So, looking at the show, there was some good. Like the middle part here, we had some good shit here. And then the main event had a great moment to it. I think B, maybe. Is it better than No Way Out and Judgment Day? I think it might. Yeah, I think it might be. I think it might be slightly better. I'd probably give it like a B- if that was an option. But I think B. There wasn't that much that was terrible about it. And by the way, I look at Chronic as a good thing because it was just hilarious. I think I'm gonna go B on this one. What's next? No Mercy. No Mercy. I think it's the next year that they debut that theme song. No mercy on your soul. Whatever that little deal is. So we have what happened on this show? Oh, so we had Kurt Angle versus Austin again, I think. Oh no, this is the triple threat match. with RVD thrown in there with Austin and Kurt, right? Yeah. That match didn't really stick with me. I don't remember it being particularly bad, but it was just kind of whatever. And to me, it kind of halted the momentum of RVD because he had him take the pin at the end. It just kind of an out of nowhere finish. You had like the McMahons getting involved as per usual in this era, but I remember it being particularly like grotesque at this point. You had Rock versus Jericho, which was a pretty good match, but just a shitty finish with Stephanie and McMahon getting involved. You have Jericho's crowning moment kind of tainted by that. The crowd wasn't as into it as they should have been. Booker T versus Undertaker was basically a squash. Just again, WCW guys getting, paying their dues. Is that what they're doing here? What the hell is going on with this tag match? Tajiri and Big Show? One guy's small, one guy's big. How are they gonna coexist? Fuck, man. They did it with Spike and Kane. Like, it was just their thing they did. Vince smashed Austin open with a chair shot. That was, man, he hit him like in the back of the head, right? Yeah. Old bionic redneck. You're just gonna smash him with a steel chair in the back of the neck. Good call, Vince. Oh, did you hear that crack? Test versus Kane, underrated. I think Test had some good showings in this year. He never really caught fire, but he had little spurts of greatness sprinkled throughout, kind of through his whole career, really. But just never really caught and stuck with me, you know. Lingerie match. A lingerie match. Stacy Keibler and Tori Wilson. I remember this. You know what I remember about this match? I remember watching this match and being like, wow, these two were actually wrestling. Like, I thought they were going to do the whole WrestleMania 19 thing where they just have like a bed with pillows and they're just going to hit each other and then the feathers are going to be flying everywhere and then they're just going to kiss at the, or whatever they did. But it was just like a wrestling match, but they just happened to be wearing lingerie. I was like, why? As if like just normal wrestling attire isn't skimpy enough, you know what I'm saying? Edge and Christian fighting for the Intercontinental title in a ladder match. You see that on paper, especially if you're living in the moment of 2001 and you're like, wow, this is going to be match of the year. Easy. And while I enjoyed it, the crowd was not into it. And it was a very slow-paced ladder match. But in my opinion, that slow pace made all of the high spots mean something. So whenever, somebody would fall off the ladder or get hit with a ladder, the crowd popped hard. And I think that's a testament to how well the match was built, how it kind of built on itself. And then you had the incredible finish where you have like two ladders set up in the middle. You have Christian laying prone face down on top of both ladders. And then you have Edge hit the concerto. He slides a chair under Christian's head, who's laying on top of the ladder, takes a second chair, concerto on the Christian, which is how this whole feud started, and this is how it ended, on top of a ladder in a match that pretty much made both of these guys. It was just, the story to it all was great, but for whatever reason, the crowd wasn't as into it as I thought they would be. And maybe that's why this match doesn't get talked about a lot. But the whole feud kind of, between these two guys, the whole feud felt rushed. It's also smack dab in the middle of the invasion, so it kind of got muddied amongst all that stuff. Still kind of fresh off of 9/11 too, which is another factor. So lots of reasons why that feud doesn't get talked about, in my opinion. You have this opening tag match, which I don't remember. The WCW tag team titles are on the line, and you have the Hardys involved, and Mighty Molly, which is Hurricane and Mighty Molly were a fun act at this point for sure, but don't really remember a whole lot about this opening match, honestly. So looking at this whole show, Edge and Christian was fun. Jericho and Rock was okay with a shitty finish. Yeah. Yeah. Testicles. I think C. I think it was better. It was definitely better than Invasion. I almost feel like it was better than Judgment Day. Do I put Judgment Day in D? I think I might shift Judgment Day to D. Because I feel like No Mercy was definitely better. I think that's what we're going to go with. I think that's the move. All right. What do we have next? Survivor Series. The culmination of the Invasion angle. Survivor Series 2001. I thought it was a pretty good show. I think the main event, Alliance versus Team WWF, was great. But you think Invasion C? I'm gonna stick with D for now. I still think as a whole, it's as good as No Mercy or No Way Out in my opinion. But yeah, Survivor Series. The main event was great. You know, we all have our criticisms on the angle as a whole, and the players that involved. I mean, let's just look at it, man. You have Team WWF versus Team Alliance. Look at Team Alliance here. Steve Austin, Shane McMahon, Kurt Angle, representing the team of the WWF or the team of WCW and ECW. That's all you need to know. No DDP, no Lance Storm, no guys you could have built. You know, your Sean O'Hare's, your Chuck Butler, none of that. Not even like a Jericho who would have made sense to come over, or Big Show. You know, former WCW guys that you could have brought over if you wanted to, but nope, we have those guys on the side of WWF, which I guess makes sense in the way of like, okay, they were in WCW, they didn't like their experience there, but I don't know, man. The players involved didn't make sense, but the match was awesome. I remember this match being awesome here. This women's match right here was actually pretty good, especially for the era. You have the debut of Jazz, and you have people like Molly and Lita and Trish and Jacqueline and Ivory, the best of this era. Like look at these names here. This is by far the best of this era as far as women go. So that was pretty solid. You have the Battle Royal, which I'll put it to you guys this way. I had Just Incredible on my episode where I reviewed this show, which, by the way, if you're just tuning in, I review all of these shows in long form. Click the link in the description if you're interested in that. But I had Just Incredible on as a guest to review this show. He's in this Battle Royal. He doesn't even fucking remember it. If that tells you anything about the quality of this match. Hardy's versus Dudley's in a steel cage. Fun match. I loved it. Edge versus Test. I remember that match being pretty good, actually. And you have all the titles being unified, which is another plus. So now we're getting rid of all these junk titles that were just thrown around willy-nilly. Tajiri versus William Regal is probably another short-ass match. Christian versus Al Snow, which is just a random-ass match to open the show, but it was solid. It was fine. So yeah, I'm looking at this show as a whole. Yeah, it's some good. Yeah, the main event, like I said, was great. The women was about as good as you're going to get from the women in this era. Dudley's versus Hardy's was a great match. So some good stuff on here. Nothing outright bad, really, other than maybe the Battle Royal. I think B. I think Survivor Series is B. Because nothing was really like, I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and say B. Because as a whole, other than the main event, not a lot that just kind of jumped off the page to me. But it was solid throughout, so I'm gonna go B. Vengeance 2001. So now, as I am live here, I have not dropped this episode yet, but it will be coming later this month. But I have watched this show. I watched it a few days ago, actually. And I had no idea what to expect because, like I said, I wasn't watching in this period, and this is after the invasion, which is in between the invasion and ruthless aggression era. Is like I don't really know what happens there, so I didn't know what to expect. I obviously, other than the main event and what we all kind of associate the show with, and Jericho walking out as the first ever undisputed champion, beating Austin and Rock in the same night. You've heard it before. But outside of that, I thought it was actually a pretty fun show. For the most part. What we got here? I remember the first thing I think of is RVD versus Taker, which was fun as hell. Rob Van Dam versus Undertaker in a hardcore title match. I thought it was a super fun match. It was the beginning of heel Undertaker as well. But what else? You have this opening match here, which is like you have the Hip Hop Hippo and Scotty 2 Hotty versus Christian and Test, kind of planting seeds for the Un-Americans. It was a really fun opener, but it was just an opener. Matt Riddy, what's up, buddy? Yeah, the opening match is fine, but it was like didn't matter. It was pretty pointless. Edge versus Regal is a match that sounds like it should be a tremendous technical masterclass, but it was just kind of boring, honestly. Then you have this period where Regal is like using brass knucks like that. Okay, there we go. So Regal is kind of like fresh off of his like commissioner role, and now we're trying to build him up to be like a serious competitor. It's like kind of a weird transition there. Man, and I'm gonna talk about this in long form here in the next week or two when I drop this review. But Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy. What the fuck happened here, dude? Because like, man, I was a Hardy Boys mark. Hardy Boys were everything to me, dude. And this match should have been just like emotionally, like I should be drawn in by this. But this is what these two guys did. They went out there and tried to have a technical wrestling match, which is not what people liked the Hardys for. And yeah, I agree. WrestleMania 25, they had a pretty good match. I think it was like an Extreme Rules match, right? That's what people wanted. They wanted the high spots. They wanted the spectacle. But in this match here, Vengeance 2001, they just had a wrestling match, and nobody gave a fuck. Also, the fact that nobody really... Both Jeff and Matt were kind of being dicks. Because you have Jeff cost them the match at Survivor Series by jumping off the cage and missing with a swanton. But then you have Matt Hardy, who is definitely positioned as the heel here. He's abusing Lita. He's, saying that he's the better Hardy. He's being the heel here. So nobody was really giving you any reason to cheer for them. Or boo them, really. So it was a very cold match, awkward match, and it's weird that they didn't have chemistry. Maybe they just tried too hard. Maybe they were just in their heads too much, like, oh, I'm facing my brother. It's got to be amazing. Like, maybe there was too much pressure. Maybe it's because, these guys haven't had that many singles matches, big-time singles matches in their careers yet. A lot of factors at play here, but the Hardy match was not good. Dudley's versus Kane and Big Show was actually fine, but that's just what it was. It was fine. Trish versus Jacqueline was a abysmal. Trish was very green. I guess that's what Jacqueline's there to do, is try to help her, but it wasn't enough in this case. Very awkward match here. And then you have the 3 matches to close out the show. Austin versus Angle, like I mentioned earlier, always had great chemistry, and this is again one of their better matches here at Vengeance 2001, which it's all included in this kind of bracket style deal here. So people don't probably talk about this a lot because it's intertwined in the whole Jericho walking out as the double champion. But Kurt Angle versus Steve Austin was a damn good match at Vengeance 2001, as was Rock versus Jericho. 2 really good matches. And then you have the show. Man, you always hear about how Jericho becoming champion here was like kind of muddied with all the interference. But man, it doesn't do it justice until you actually watch it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, you have Vince McMahon getting involved. You have Nick Patrick, the crooked referee. You have Booker T getting involved at the end. You also have Kurt Angle and Rock coming back and attacking each guy and then attacking each other. It was a mess, dude. And then, but Jericho walks out undisputed champion. But as we all look back in hindsight, really just a transitional champion, and really just they didn't capitalize on it. They didn't capitalize on Jericho winning here. Pretty forgettable reign that he had as undisputed champion, but I can applaud them for going kind of, because if you look at those 4 guys, Rock, Austin, Angle, Jericho probably wasn't the person that people were expecting to walk out. So I applaud them for the unpredictability factor of this. But then looking at the show as a whole, right? Since we're ranking this, loved RVD Taker. I'll say I really liked Angle versus Austin. Otherwise, not a lot. And the fact that the Hardy match was as shitty as it was kind of bumps it down to me too. Let's see here. I might go C on this one. Yeah, I think I'm going to go C because, like, thank you, Matthew. Yeah, there's nothing really just jumps out at me other than the hardcore title match. But nothing other than the Hardy match was outwardly bad. Even the Hardy... bad maybe is being harsh, but the crowd just wasn't into it, and it should have been a lot better. I think C is fair. No. What do you think, Ritter? What do you think of this list, huh? What do you think? What do you think this list that Daddy made here? But yeah, I think that I don't think that definitely covers it because that's all the pay-per-views. Like if I included Rebellion and Insurrection, I don't even really remember. Rebellion actually was pretty fun because you had Edge and Christian in a cage. You had Rock versus Austin, but again, it's just not canon, so I didn't want to include those. But man, 2001 was, look, these rankings are graded against the 2001 scale, and like if we just had pay-per-views, let's say like pay-per-views of the 2000s, right? All of these shows would probably be in the top 2 tiers. Like, 2001 was a great year for WWF pay-per-views. So while you have some D and C stuff at the bottom, they still rank above as some of the better shows that ever happened. So, 2001 was a fun year, man. It was like I said earlier, is my peak wrestling fandom here. Especially, WrestleMania. You start off with Rumble, which is my favorite Rumble, like I mentioned, and then you have the Invasion kind of muddying things up. I get it. But even despite that, there was some really good stuff this year. And yeah. It was just a year where you can like segment each show. Like you remember the sets. You remember what happened. You remember the theme songs. It was just, it was peak wrestling at this point. And yeah, loved it. But and like I said, if you're just stumbling upon this after the fact, I have reviewed all of these shows in long form. You can go to apronbump.com or click the link in the description if you want more of that. And I do several different timelines here. Hold on, let me do this deal. I'll just keep it there. Do several different timelines: WCW, ECW, TNA, Ring of Honor, Progress. And I think I'm going to continue doing this kind of thing whenever I finish out a year. So like here, I finished out 2001. I think Royal Rumble is actually my first retro pay-per-view review I did. I've done each one, and Vengeance will be coming out later this month. So yeah, whenever I finish out a year, I think I'll continue to do these. I think the next one that I finish, if I'm remembering correctly, might be Ring of Honor of 2002. So that might be the next one. But yeah, I think that's all Daddy has for you today. I'm gonna do it again. Blue Skidoo, Weekend 2. Ooh. Okay. Thank you guys for anybody that kind of stumbled through the chat or anybody that's watching after the fact. Thank you for giving this a gander. Doing a little something different this week. Won't be a traditional episode this week, but next week we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming. Probably will release this audio version of this tomorrow. Yeah, apronbump.com for all my full episodes. Follow me on the soch down here. Little gimmick here. Boom, boom, boom. And yeah, that's all Daddy has for you guys tonight. Thank you guys once again for joining. And I am hard.
Yeah.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started.